Well, there's nothing quite like a transfer bombazzo to get you in the mood for the weekend, is there? Happy Friday, people, and welcome back to Manchester City, James Trafford. This is the City Ramble, leading the conversation in the world of Manchester City. If you aren't by now, hit the subscribe button. Plenty of Man City content throughout the summer transfer window and ahead of the new Premier League season. Again, get involved in our City Ramble Discord. You can discuss all of Man City's transfer news, rumblings, all of the stuff related to football, all of the stuff not related to football. But here we are. Man City have agreed a deal with Burnley for James Trafford. This is what we know so far. It's been reported by The Athletic, David Ornstein in The Athletic, that a deal worth 27 million quid has been agreed between Manchester City and Burnley. City have matched Newcastle's offer, which I believe it was reported earlier this week that there was a clause in the buyback clause that City had, I think it was 72 hours to match an offer made by Newcastle. Ironically, Newcastle might have done City a really good helping hand here by offering 27 million quid, because it means that City get to match it and then City win the race. Anyway, we'll get into that. But it's a 5-year plus one deal in terms of the contract he's going to be signing. Obviously, he was once a Manchester City player through the academy. He left in 2023. He's now going to be back. And honestly, this, for me, is the perfect deal. One of the reasons behind that is the fee, and I hate to talk money, but it is modern day football. This is kind of where the first sort of people's attention goes straight away. Chucking my pen about that. But James Trafford, 27 million quid. That's the fee City are paying now. But remember, City banked £14 million when they sold James Trafford to Burnley a couple of years ago. So realistically here, we're talking £13 million net for the purchase of James Trafford, because City got £14 million in. They're now shelling out £27 million. That means that overall, in my eyes anyway, James Trafford is only really costing City £13 million, which I think is an astonishingly good fee when you consider what City are getting. You know, obviously, he's 22 years old. I think he turns 23 later this year. So he's got age on his side. He's got the potential. He's been touted as England's number one. And now, you know, fingers crossed, with a bit of luck, City's number one. And he's obviously not as good as Ederson with his feet, who is, in world football, I maintain he is still the best passer of the ball in terms of goalkeepers in the entire world. But he's a great shot stopper. People will say, oh yeah, well, he's only, you know, he's had a year of Premier League experience, but the majority of his football has been played in the lower leagues. Honestly, I think the one position on the pitch where shot stopping ability can translate is goalkeeper, or you know, that ability can translate is goalkeeper, because, you know, yes, there might be better finishers and the shots might be a little bit more powerful, but when you've got that basic sort of intuition, the skill set, it's going to translate. At least I think it will. Maybe I'm completely wrong and we see he makes the step up and he's absolutely useless. I don't think he will be. I think this is going to be a great deal. In terms of, obviously, we've mentioned the finances there, the shot stopping ability, the potential, the low risk, high reward part of this, I think, is worth mentioning, because obviously City, £27 million overall is a bit of a high fee. It's close to what City paid for Ederson a couple of years ago, a few years ago now, nearly a decade ago. But even still, you know, on the grand scheme of things, it isn't that much for a goalkeeper. However, if for whatever reason it doesn't work out with James Trafford in 2 years' time, I think City would be able to fetch that back. In fact, if you told me, for whatever reason, fingers crossed it does work, by the way, I'm not writing him off already, but if you told me for whatever reason it doesn't work in 2 years' time, I wouldn't be surprised if City made a profit on him. You know, because that's kind of, because it won't be end game for him. He'll still have a great career. I still think it's going to work out at City though. So that's why I think it's low risk, high reward. If it doesn't work out, City will be able to move him on. But I think it's going to be great. The other major part of this, the dominoes are starting to fall into place, aren't they, in terms of City's goalkeeper department? Because everybody thought it was going to be Ederson that was leaving the club this summer, and it was going to be Ortega and it was going to be James Trafford battling for that number one spot. David Ornstein again in The Athletic reporting that Ederson is going to be staying at Manchester City this summer, with the expectation being that Stefan Ortega could leave, but nothing is close at present. Now, obviously, City brought in Bettinelli, as the sort of the homegrown third choice Scott Carson replacement. That was a nominal fee. I don't think it was too much money. So you expect him to be third choice. It says nothing is close. I think Ortega's going to now leave. It always felt at least one of those would leave. City have obviously moved quickly. They've had to move quickly because, like I said, there was that clause that if Newcastle submitted an offer, City had 72 hours to match it. They did so. I think the buyback clause originally for City was 40 million quid. So, there's another £13 million they've saved on top of that. It gets better and better. But I think Newcastle submitting that £27 million offer has kind of done City, like I said, giving them a helping hand. But it feels to me like Ortega's going to leave. And honestly, this is why I think it's the perfect deal, because the price is for me amazing for what you're getting and what you might be able to sort of get in the future potential-wise. It's a homegrown player. I know Burnley were in the Championship last season, but they're in the Premier League now. So you're buying off another Premier League club. Usually there's a Premier League tax. We know about that. But also, Ederson's staying around for one more year. There will be people who think that is a disaster and that the world is going to collapse and City have got no choice of winning anything. I would call those people maniacs. But Ederson is still, he's got his flaws. I'm not saying he hasn't. But him sticking around for another year until his contract expires at the end of next season, I think is great because it gives Trafford a bit of time to settle in. He's a young lad. If he'd arrived as City's outright number one, that would have been a lot of pressure on his shoulders straight away. That isn't the case now. I'm not saying that, in fact, I can see a situation where James Trafford at the end of the season is City's number one anyway. But I just think for that initial settling in period, if Ederson is still here, he obviously knows the style of play. Maybe he was bad last season and people weren't happy with him. I think that's fair. That's a fair criticism. But a lot of players were bad last season, and a lot of players weren't. A lot of fans weren't happy with a lot of players. I expect it to get better across the board, and I expect Ederson to be amongst that. So if he starts the season, there's a chance that City will obviously, settle back into a bit of a rhythm. Trafford can learn off Ederson. Trafford, in my eye, my theory will be that this time next year, Trafford is ready to step up into the number one spot. Ederson leaves on a free transfer. For me, the money you were speaking about getting off Galatasaray, obviously there was talk of like a £5 million bid or a £3 million bid. I think it's better for City for him to leave on a free, maybe get another year out of him. Obviously, keep that consistency. Let James Trafford come through. The pieces that have fallen into place for this deal, I just don't think are getting enough credit because there's so many parts of it, there's so many strands of it that make so much sense. I'd have backed James Trafford if he was coming in as the outright number one. But, oh my lord, that would have been an incredible amount of pressure. Can you imagine for a 22-year-old, especially if, the fee wasn't as low as it was, 40 million quid, and he's coming in and he's got to make an immediate impact. That would have been massive. That would have been really massive. Alas, that isn't the case. Ederson's going to be sticking around. Ederson will probably start the season. James Trafford will be pushing him. Who remembers the last time Ederson had a genuine number two challenging him, wanting that number one spot, being hungry to beat him, being hungry to get into the team? What happened? City won the treble. I'm not saying that that's going to be the case again, but it felt like when Ortega initially came in, there was that real fire underneath Ederson's belly. It might go the opposite way. You might be like, you know what, I'm checked out mentally, and in that case, fine, because James Trafford will be ready to come in. But it could push Ederson on to go back to where he was. I just feel like this deal is great. I just feel like this deal is absolutely fantastic because, it just ticks so many boxes. Medical is now being reported that it could be on Monday. So this deal, what are we on now? Friday? I'd be surprised if we've not got the signed, sealed, delivered, club interview, all that business by Wednesday, to be honest. At least sort of middle of next week, maybe Thursday. But it just feels like this is motored. And I said on a video, I think it was earlier this week, that I expect it to really start picking up pace before the end of the week. Hey, here we are. I think it's a great move for City. It obviously helps the homegrown quota, which is an issue they're getting rid of, most likely. One non-homegrown goalkeeper, bringing in a homegrown goalkeeper. I think we still possibly need to get rid of one non-homegrown player. That might be Ilkay Gundogan in midfield. I don't know. Maybe it frees up space to go and get a right back. For me now, that is the last missing piece of City's puzzle. the rebuild has really taken shape over the last 12 months. I feel like people forget when they speak about City's rebuild, they almost feel like it's just this summer with Shirky, Aït-Nouri and Reinders and now Trafford. But you've got to go back to January as well because, you know, some big signings were made there. Omar Mamouche, who I saw someone call him a panic buy on Twitter. What a load of nonsense that was. Omar Mamouche, Vita Hayes, Kusanov, Nico Gonzalez, obviously, you know, the last three there, we maybe not have seen as much, but I think they'll have a massive part to play for City in the upcoming season. And yeah, look, it's patience. People have got to be patient. Transfer deals, they don't happen overnight. City have still got some great players. You know, this deal isn't going to be getting the attention that maybe an Arsenal deal or a Liverpool deal has got because City aren't paying 100 million quid for it. But it's a really smart bit of business. James Trafford back to City. Ederson sticking around for a year. Stefan Ortega getting a bit of cash for him as well. You know, imagine City got £15 million for Ortega. I don't think it's going to happen, but imagine. And City actually, on their goalkeeper sales this year, goalkeeper sales and purchases, make a profit. You know, you've got to be patient. Hugo Viana is working really well, in my opinion. I do want to see a couple of the players start to leave so we can see the squad take shape. You know, there's some players sticking around who weren't even in the Club World Cup squad that are yet to seal a move away. So yeah, I feel like it's starting to move. It's starting to look good. It's starting to take shape. There's still a little bit more that needs to be done, especially I feel like in the right-back department if City are really going to be challenging next season. But look, I'm not complaining, and neither should you. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the subscribe, hit the like button whilst you're down there as well. Get involved in the City Ramble Discord, and until next time, it's been a pleasure, and we will see you later.